Hey guys, welcome back to the Panda Podcast. I'm your host Panda. Joining us today is Mr. Jerry back in the house.
Yep.
Building Gundam as usual. Mr. Jason.
Hello.
And joining us today, a special guest from the BJCKDs Podcast, Mr. Chris. How you doing today?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. Mr. Blake.
Yo.
If you guys want to listen to more Blake and Chris talk about their own thing, they do have their own podcast channel, the BJCKDs Podcast. I'll leave it in the comments section below. But we did a collaboration with them a couple of days ago.
Yeah, we literally kind of just describe ourselves as six idiots striving towards internet stupidity. So, we try and have a good time with it, essentially.
How was that going for you? Because you guys have just started podcasting.
Yeah, we started about 7 weeks ago at this point, so about 2 months. Yeah. And it's been interesting. It's been good trying to learn what works and what doesn't. We've kind of said that we're definitely developing from what we're doing. Like, We've had people come and go who have come talk to us about different things we can do in terms of recording, where we record, how we edit, and we're a video podcast, so you can actually see us. You can actually see us as we're talking,
which is different to ours because, as people know, we are just an audio podcast. We can listen to us on YouTube and iTunes, and we tend to keep where we shoot quite secret. We're doing it in our own version of the Batcave, so.
Yeah,
you don't tell people what the Batcave is.
Yeah, you definitely don't tell people what the Batcave is, and
compared to us, we even burned down our own location.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. I could do some time travel bullshit.
Yeah, and I had no correction. I had to pay a lot of money for that. So yes, yeah.
So you guys burnt down your Batcave?
No, they burnt down my Batcave.
I didn't do anything. I think it was Spencer actually.
No, I don't know who it was. I wasn't there.
We're not quite sure.
Eternal mystery. But besides the point, we kind of essentially we're six guys. We're just trying to talk about stuff that we enjoy. We're into our anime. We're into comics. We're into movies. We're into a lot of pop culture stuff, and we try and just talk about stuff that's been happening. Yeah. So we've talked about stuff with Foxtel, and especially with new Game of Thrones coming out. We've talked about stuff we're working with cosplay and where the lines are. And we talked about Ghost in the Shell last week. Actually, no, 2 weeks ago at this point.
2 weeks ago.
With the whole...
Scarlett Johansson, whitewashing Ghost in the Shell.
Which we got an interesting reply for. I'm not sure if you noticed on the Facebook page, but there was a video posted on our page that...
So wait, some guy recorded themselves and sent it to you?
No, it was how Japan reacted to... how just the general public in Japan reacted to the whitewashing.
How they react? How actually? I didn't. I saw it. I saw the link, but I never actually watched the video itself.
Because I heard that they're okay with it.
Yeah, they are actually perfectly fine with it.
Huh. I think the difference comes down to opportunity, and I think especially when you come to where Hollywood is a lot more America as a whole, even though it doesn't act like it, has a very big diverse population. Even though it doesn't act like it. Well, okay. What I'm trying to get at is when you think about Hollywood, a lot of people weren't inherently pissed at Scarlett Johansson for taking the role.
No,
it was more a matter of
how they portrayed it,
but also how there has been a huge history of whitewashing roles which could have been given to actors of the actual race, and it's a matter of opportunity.
Dragon Ball Z.
But Dragon Ball Z, but also Gods of more recently stuff like Gods of Egypt was. I
heard that the one with Christian Bale.
Yeah. Christian Bale, but and then because people have been annoyed when it's white people are doing it on multicultural actors, but then you consider why they don't react when it's the exact opposite. Where there's a musical called Hamilton that came out recently. That's it got nominated just this week for 16 Tonys. It's about the American founding fathers who were white men.
Yeah.
And it's a multicultural cast. So people haven't had an issue with that, and when you think about it, they've been praising them for it, and it comes down to opportunity. It's not a matter of a white actor being given a African American role or an Asian role or anything like that. It's a matter of that was an opportunity that could have gone to someone else, especially when you look at where a lot of main actors are white. When you have a role that could have quite easily been for another culture, and you don't give it to that other culture.
Did you guys hear about the rumor where they were going to potentially augment Scarlett Johansson's characters to make her look a bit more Asian?
And that made it worse.
Yeah.
This is what I've heard though. It's from what they've said. is that they didn't use the augmentation on her face, but a background character. But I'm just like, they spent $1 million on it.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking, why would they spend $1 million on a background character?
It depends on what it is. I think it's
a full CGI model.
But it also, like, again, it comes back to opportunity. If you had done it to Scarlett Johansson, people would have gone, why didn't you just cast an Asian actor?
Exactly.
And
which when Japan was reacting to it, they said she looks like a good actor. If she's a good actor, she should do the role. That was their opinion. But.
Yeah, but you also have to consider America and a lot of the West is very. There's a huge race separation culture of people being put down based on their race or feeling like opportunity has been missed. So when stuff like this happens, it's a lot more blown up because there has been quite clearly a history of people putting other people down for this type of stuff. So it's the 21st century. We should be getting past this and just being people versus being colors.
Well, people haven't accepted it yet, so
no,
it's appalling, but it's the cards that we've been dealt so far.
It's a very complicated subject.
Yeah.
On the topic of Scarlett Johansson, though, I'm sure you guys have talked about this, but Jason and Jerry, did you guys know about the guy who built a $50,000 robot that looks like Scarlett Johansson?
No, and I'd like to see it actually.
Yeah, you like to see it? I'll put it somewhere on the podcast as an image, but he made a robot to look like Scarlett Johansson. It's fully operational. Like it winks, it smiles.
In what way?
It's creepy.
Jerry, why are you laughing?
In the creepy way.
Laughing here?
Why would you guys use the term operational? The biostar is now operational.
That's
Scarlett Johansson's now online.
It makes no sense. Like, you could say it works, it talks, right? Why operational? Doesn't matter. Side note.
Side note.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the guy apparently used 3D printing technology to create her ribs, and her base skeleton. But it's just weird. Like, how much of an obsessed man are you to spend $50,000 to make a robot based on a celebrity?
I think this is more so like, depending on his background, I think it's more so promotion for him.
Well, the guy apparently was a product designer.
There you go.
Okay.
That's fair, but it's also the case of, if he was doing that, what could he have used it for elsewhere? Like, you can think about stuff like, with, kids, or with stuff like, where you can have a humanoid robot that does those type of actions, but for a bigger purpose than it's Scarlett Johansson.
But it's also a publicity stunt, so...
I mean,
but
you could kind of talk about that, though, in a sense. What does the guy do? What's his background?
His background was in product design.
Right, so it could just be him doing it as a pet project to test a concept for a product he might...
That's a really big...
That's $50,000
For him, like,
$50,000.
doesn't matter what kind of publicity it
It's
is.
a good portfolio right there.
It's just publicity, right? I mean, you could say that he's fanboying over, in this case, Scarlett Johansson. There's not really that much issue with it. I've seen people fanboy over that guy from Walking Dead, that Archer guy. I don't know what his name is. Daryl, yeah. Like, it's just people's choices.
Okay, fair. Like, it's fair, but it's one of those things where to each is their own. But I just don't get it.
Well, even making it, I understand that it's a good publicity stunt, but the way he's made it just made it seem so creepy.
Okay, that's a case of the Uncanny Valley, in which then it almost gets past it. It's kind of weird.
Just the head's a little bit big.
It's just like I look at that, and when it's a still shot, it actually looks it actually looks almost real.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
To such a point where it's just like, is that actually
Scarlett
Scarlett
Johansson?
Johansson? But as soon as it moves, it's just like, whoa.
Yeah.
The other thing is
because the movements are still somewhat awkward,
Yeah.
But the other thing is, if it's a matter of self-promotion, what do you expect the return to be if you're putting $50,000 into it?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Investment, but
I mean, it might also just be, I want a robot of Scarlett Johansson, in which that is creepy.
But
why did you say that in a robot-y voice?
What I mean by that is, if investment on what? I can make a robot that looks like a celebrity. Is what is the point?
You don't need to focus on the celebrity part. It's just automation, right? If you want to put it that way, you have Kickstarter for smaller projects, for 3D printers, someone printing a car, right? Those are small scale projects. Something like this needs a lot of
Wait, when you say printing a car, do you mean printing a
Yes,
new car
some
or
dude-
a small
Oh
model?
yeah,
Some
someone
dude
as
printed
the
a car. He downloaded a car
Okay.
and printed a car.
But
That's not exactly a
So-
small-scale project.
But-
Then
Yeah,
no,
It doesn't cost that much money because you have the printer, you have the stuff that goes into the printer, maybe some technology behind it. But cases like this, if he's actually looking at going further with this, he needs a massive amount of investment. And if you like, I'm not too familiar with the background of this whole case. But if he's planning to do this as a venture, this is amazing publicity stunt. He's been pulling.
So essentially what you're saying is he's promoting the internals by having the externals be very public.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's fair, but it's still a matter of it still just feels weird. It just feels weird, I guess, because it was how the media reported it. It was
Yeah.
some bloke.
Oh,
If he, I don't know if the motives were reported.
But you gotta understand, media is entertainment.
No, I'm not arguing that. I'm just making that point of from the perspective of what information was given.
Fair enough.
BuzzFeed.
Oh my god,
Wait,
BuzzFeed.
did you read this off BuzzFeed?
No, fuck BuzzFeed.
No,
Because you know that BuzzFeed would have put something else about this, in a weirder sense.
Oh yeah, but
Really?
it's like that form of media is what appears on your Facebook feed, and that's how this stuff gets to us talking about it.
The top 3 news sites I'm getting from this are the Telegraph in the UK, Wired magazine, and the Daily Mail.
Yeah.
The Wired is a bit more of a internet thing.
It's a more of a technological thing.
Yeah, which does make sense in this case.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would. IT magazine probably would have respected that more than just public newspaper.
Speaking of,
But then IT magazine will look more at the making of it. Then
how the making of it, but they would respect it more. So.
well, okay, speaking of just BuzzFeed and that, so like you know how they do these top 10 lists.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually some.
you mean like every other YouTube channel on the net?
Well, actually, I was about to get to every other YouTube channel.
Watch Mojo.
Well, what's
Myself.
But Matthew Santoro.
Yeah,
There's he's a big YouTuber that got in a huge amount of trouble recently. For
YouTube drama,
plagiarism.
all that YouTube drama and stuff that's happening now.
But like YouTube drama has been a huge thing for a while. Like you can think it's a lot more prevalent in the past 6 months alone because think about the amount of scandals that have come out of this. You've had Matthew Santoro more recently, Toby Turner, the Fine Brothers.
PewDiePie's involved.
PewDiePie's been talking more about general drama versus individual things. Like he's been talking about people who stir the shit. Which,
And also the fact of like just YouTube changing its whole format and all that.
Yeah, but YouTube changes formats all the time.
Exactly, and he doesn't realize that too well.
As the guy who's like constantly number one.
Yeah, as the guy who's constantly number one, but he's been number one throughout the entire of YouTube focusing on gaming content.
how long has that actually been?
And now we're transitioning to a new stage of YouTube, and he's not part.
He has been trying to do stuff with it.
He is making original content on YouTube Red outside of the gaming community.
Yeah, but there's the YouTube Red, there's the whole monetization thing, and YouTube has changed from when PewDiePie started and when he became big and all that, and it's changing out of this part that he was a big part of.
I would still say though that, but then he's got really bad time because he's recently I've followed a bit of news on some of his stuff, and he has been accepting the fact that he's the guy at number one, more nowadays than he has been back when it first happened.
Well, he did make a video a while back about how much money he's made because apparently someone released how much PewDiePie makes or how much the top 10 YouTubers make.
But I'm meaning by that he's very self-critical
Isn't that against the YouTube terms of service?
Well, they don't give out exact numbers, but they estimate it based on the view count and the CPM model. So look at how many subscribers a YouTube channel might have and the number of views they might have, and then estimate it through that.
Yeah, but even so, he's been doing a lot more talking about the industry as a whole, which, to be fair, it's still one man's opinion. It's still because it's a matter of he has more subscribers than anyone else. He's the biggest YouTube success story in that regard, but he's still one man among a lot of other people that are in the exact same boat.
Yeah.
But even so, he recently did something that popped up. It was him reviewing his old videos, and this would have been around the time where he was at his popularity peaked. So where his subscriber number pretty
So
much...
was this
peaking.
format like kind of a reacts video? PewDiePie reacts to PewDiePie.
Well, yes, but PewDiePie reacts to old PewDiePie, and he was actually very critical about how lowbrow his humor was, but also how repetitive it was, how childish it was, how lazy his editing style was. He was very much going, this was me. This was him when he got very popular, when he became the forefront, and like before. But it was also a matter of, I know that I've moved on from this type of stuff. Because when people look at PewDiePie, they probably think of PewDiePie along the lines of him back in 2014, 2013. When he hit number one.
Yeah.
And
The childish guy who would always do crazy stuff to get views.
that's exactly
and
it.
screaming at every single horror game ever.
Well, yeah, and he's
he's
moved on. But I haven't seen a lot of his stuff just because I don't have time. But it feels like he's moved on from that. He's grown up, and it's whether or not that reflects in his content, whether or not that reflects in how people approach him. That's a different story.
Well, you know, with YouTubers, with anything really, they would have to progress into something else anyway. They can't be doing the same stuff all over again.
Yeah, and you can see that with all the Minecraft players. Like, they have to either transition or they're gonna pretty much die. Like, they can still do the Minecraft content, but it's a weird case of they can't abruptly go to other content, but they can't stay as just a Minecraft channel.
Or there are those
The
channels...
main example being the Oxcast. That is transitioned more to other content such as Gmod and that.
Yeah, or there are those that just,
and
die.
GTA.
They just die with their source material. Like Smike is a prime example of that. He was a guy that followed the Five Nights at Freddy's train, and he's still riding it.
Well, some guys transition from Minecraft just to be personalities on other channels as well.
Yeah.
But
Like, if you look at the Yogscast are still doing Minecraft things. But, and that's still a solid amount of viewer bases doing it that way, but in order to survive, they have gone to like GTA, Gmod, they've done a new board game series, and all that. They've transitioned into this position of other games.
is it just me, or do a lot of the more successful YouTubers seem to be group collaborations? Like you think about Let's Play channels, and you think about people who work with A, other Let's Players, or B, originate as their own group. So like...
You're kind of moving towards a whole reality television concept, whereas you'll have the guy who is basically the stupid guy, then you have the intelligent guy, and the guy who drives everyone around.
See,
and that
say that, but then that is group is all over the place.
No, you can kind of say that about the Kind of Funny group. You have Greg Miller as the main personality, and then you have Colin and Tim, and I can't remember the other guy's name. And they each bring something different to the table.
Yeah.
But those positions tend to change with which video you're watching.
Well, also...
Except for the Vanos group, because when you're looking at Vanos is clearly the head of that group. But if you look at the Nanas group, there's like Gassy Mexican, Nanas, and Chill, and sometimes Sark and Hutch. And they whoever's the group leader seems to transition all over the place.
To be fair though, the leader of those type of groups is based on whose perspective you're watching.
Exactly.
Like another prime example would be Achievement Hunter.
Okay.
They are a big, they are a bunch, their archetypes are still same as what they are. You've got the crazy guy, aka Ryan the Mad King. You've got the very British kind of stupid guy. You've got the guy who's angry. You've got the guy who's doesn't give a damn. You've got the guy who's kind of super cool, knows everything, and it's those archetypes mix and match. But you're right. We're working towards a reality TV show format, but it only feels like reality TV show in terms of the fact that there are archetypes versus the content themselves.
The point I was trying to put is because we are losing television, like just TV in general, right? Is getting a lot less views than it used to, right? You have digital TV.
Everything is moving to the net.
Exactly. So what I'm trying to propose is, what I see is that YouTube is basically trying to take over that market as on-demand streaming service in this case.
So how would you
fighting Netflix over it?
Exactly. How would you define like Netflix and Hulu and YouTube then?
Yeah, but the thing is, so you're talking about user-created content in respect to content created over in studios for the greater amount of audience. This is something where anyone can post to it, and as long as it's on your channel, it can be streamed wherever you want. right?
Yeah.
So you could also say that a lot of shows are kind of branching into the is the archetypes, the types of television shows you used to have. You have basically sports, so that's basically your esports or first-person gaming, right? You have your Let's Plays, which are reality TVs. You have your reviews, which are news channels, kind of. They talk about what's going on.
Would you argue that? Would you argue? Because I wouldn't think gaming would be. I don't think gaming's more reality TV. I think that'd be more blogging. Because like
you
that,
have
it depends. It depends who's actually playing.
like yeah, because.
But eventually you're gonna go into television and fill up all the categories in a sense.
Yeah, because you then become a personality that way, rather than a blogger.
We filled it up. We actually talked about this on when you were on our podcast
Yes.
about what are like we honestly asked what are kids watching these days, and the real answer came down to YouTubers.
It's YouTube because it's easy access.
But it's also a matter of like I think I don't actually, to be honest, YouTubers aren't reality shows. They are gamers aren't reality shows. They're the kid shows. They're the kid shows that can also transcend to adults. Like, does that make sense? Like, you know, you've got your stuff that is like more for kids, more innocent, like people like those Minecraft guys like Stampy and whatnot. Then you got your more mature cartoons, so like stuff that kind of branches out a bit more towards, like your Simpsons or your Family Guy. That'd be stuff like Van Elf, Markiplier, PewDiePie.
Yeah.
Then you've got your more mature stuff like Rick and Morty. That'd be like stuff like Funhouse. That could be Achievement Hunter quite easily. That could, you know, and you've got, and those guys are replacing them in the market. And because like I actually Googled while you guys were talking about it, what is currently running on shows like Disney and Cartoon Network, and it's a mixture of original content that you don't hear about a lot, and reruns of stuff we were watching.
That's because the market of making cartoons for kids now isn't as big as what it used to be.
But it's not even cartoons; it's live action as well. I looked at it from. But I looked at it from a perspective also live action. Like, you know, like there was a lot of like I was counting maybe 9 shows total across what Disney does for Disney kids. Like I was like
so a combination of cartoons and live action.
Yes, and it was about 9 things, and the rest was reruns of stuff that we were watching when we were in that demographic.
Because like kids would be more prone
because that stuff still works.
But it's still like it's not the original.
It's no longer as relevant.
Yeah.
Because if you start introducing kid shows that talk about like Legend of Korra, sexuality, and compared to whatever the equivalent was, the original Avatar series, you've got a confliction there.
Avatar didn't really like even Legend of Korra didn't even talk about sexuality. Like no,
it delved into it towards the end.
It delved. Okay, what it did instead was it put it on the back burner, which I appreciate in a way because it was there's a story here and there happens to be this, because they didn't go, oh, these two are lesbians or bisexual or whatever.
Yeah, let's make an entire episode about it.
But that's my point. They didn't go, oh, they're this and this.
They probably weren't allowed to do that though. They're trying to make it as subtle as possible.
No, but the subtlety was the point. It was more human.
Yeah, it's both the point, and maybe they not have been allowed to do it, but that kind of just makes a better product in the end of the first place.
Because like that almost talks about the subtlety in like it was almost more human. Like you had these characters that were people, they were personalities, and they happened to be this, and that's more human than anything. You don't have nowadays the guy that is the gay guy, or you don't have like the people aren't just the gay guy or that any type of stuff. And if they had gone down that route, they would have probably it would have been fine that the character was gay. It would have been aggravating that they had gone, oh, he is the gay character versus he is a character that is gay. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So generalization is no longer like obvious.
Well, that's when a character is a good character when they are not. You cannot generalize them.
Which is something that we probably should see in cartoons now, but only if people would be more invested in. That's my phone.
Well, we see it both ways though, because if you think about it from the perspective of, there's been a lot of push recently to make Elsa from Frozen gay, like in the sequel, and I'm just kind of going,
wait,
what?
Yeah.
No. It was like this is news to me. It's like
this is actually news to me too.
There's been certain campaigns recently to do that, and I kind of sit in the camp of, if they did do it, it was fine. But let her be her, and let the character be gay versus gay.
I only thought that was a rumor, though.
It wasn't a rumor.
It's a campaign, so it's people asking for it rather than Disney actually going out.
Because people, I've heard people analyze Frozen and thought like, okay, is Elsa gay because her songs Let It Go? She's letting go of what she's pretending to be.
But
you can't connect those two together.
Well, you can make that leap, but the fact that but if it was true and they were subtle enough to do it, and they were subtle enough for that to be the case.
This is like a group of people. This is like a group of people hearing like a film theory and just going like, this needs to be a thing, which is kind of dumb.
Well, but if it was a thing, that's fine. But it's not a matter of we need a gay character. We don't. You need to have representation of something in it, but you shouldn't be including a character that represents that demographic.
You need a character, not a token.
That's exactly it. You don't need a token character. You need a character.
Hypothetically speaking, if they ever make Elsa gay, how do you think the general public will react?
Double-edged sword. Like, because think about it this way. It's the fact that they are homosexual is not inherent, is going to piss off certain people, and it's going to make certain people happy. It's for me personally, it's not about whether they do it or not. It's how they present if they did, it's how they present it.
Because if they were going to do it, it's going to be a thing that transcends different generations. It's going to be something that gets talked about forever, and it may or may not destroy, and may or may not redefine cartoons and Disney property.
Well, they've kind of been doing that for a while, though.
Can I just point out that Disney sequels tend to suck?
There is that. but I'm more going along the lines of if they do it, they've been kind of doing that for a while. They've been announced. There was Princess and the Bride, which was the first African American princess. There's a movie.
That wasn't the Princess and the Bride. That was
the Princess and the Frog. Sorry,
Princess and the Frog.
Princess and the Frog. I got that confused with Princess Bride.
What the fuck is the Princess and the Frog?
I think that's the Anne Hathaway movie.
But my point more being, then there's a new one that's going to be like Pacific Islander, who's going to be a Pacific Islander, and coming out, and realistically, it doesn't really matter. It's like the fact again, it comes back to what we were talking about earlier of opportunity.
Yeah.
You can make a character anything you want, but you don't need to make. But you
don't make it for the sake of doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Give the opportunity there if it's there, but don't force it to be there in the first place.
Yeah. It's artistic vision.
Yeah, and it's kind of it's the double-edged sword of it's there's kind of the two sides of if it's the opportunity, do it, but don't force the opportunity because when you try and force something, you screw it up.
Because it's rushed. It's not natural.
Exactly.
I think we just need to see how it goes. It's the first time we've all heard about the Elsa being gay, as canon.
Well, it's not canon though. It's just it's people saying
that it should be canon.
Well, campaigning for it to be canon. Hell, there was a petition recently to where the Boaty McBoatface thing. No, where
you're always gonna go back to
no. Okay, the boat's gonna be named David Attenborough, and there's now recently as a petition to make David Attenborough's name Boaty McBoatface.
Yeah, the research ship is called David Attenborough, right?
That's my point.
The submersible on it is going to be called Boaty McBoatface.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Huh.
I didn't hear about this.
I have a look. I'm not sure if it's legit or not. I haven't checked.
No, because they made that petition for that.
No, the submersible on it is going to be called Boaty McBoatface.
So they made a petition to name the boat. The petition ended up with Boaty
McBoatface. Yeah.
The council denied that name.
But they decided to honor up to some extent and by calling the submersible on board.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
So the submarine which the council has
But there's currently...
So who cares about the submersible?
No, okay, clearly no one, because I haven't heard anyone...
Exactly.
But, there's now a petition to change David Attenborough's name to Boaty McBoatface. But, it's stupid. It's really...
that's just going to end up being jokes, and, David Attenborough is, just one of his, what's it called?
nature documentaries.
One of his documentaries, and it's like someone's gonna walk into the room, and it's like, oh hey, it's Boaty McBoatface.
Actually,
It's not gonna last. Stuff like this never lasts.
Oh no,
No,
the
it-
internet.
Of course not. Of course not.
The internet only gets mad for so well. Okay, correction. The internet only gets mad for so long.
And it
But-
only gets so crazy for so long.
But
on a
the thing
particular
is,
topic.
it seems
That's
to keep jumping and getting mad at people over. It seems to
That
keep
seems to be
jumping-
that seems to be the trend.
Like it's getting worse. Like especially with certain things that, to be honest, don't deserve it to the level they're getting it. Like,
No.
Like prime example would be movie trailers. Recently, the new Ghostbusters trailer became the most disliked video trailer on YouTube ever. And whether or not it's going to be a good or a bad movie, there are shit movies that are being treated a lot nicer than that.
Dragon Ball Z.
Dragon Ball Z, Last Airbender.
Oh yeah, wow. Well,
To be fair, the last end of the trailer kind of looked decent.
But what I mean by that is...
that's what they try to do. They want to make the trailers are there that look decent. Then the movies come out and the movies suck.
But
Which is why it's really worrying when you see a bad trailer.
But that was the thing, was there are bad trailers for Adam Sandler movies that get treated nicer than that.
But that's
who
that's-
had faith in Pixels?
That's because Adam Sandler has all the money in the world right now.
No, but
Also, I've seen
does
people
that
who
money buy likes and dislikes?
It buys him the next movie he's gonna make.
No, but what I mean by that is like it was an Adam Sandler movie and the trailer did not look good. What differentiates the fact that a shitty Adam Sandler movie it's Adam Sandler movie, it's going to be shit, versus a Ghostbusters trailer that, for all we could have just had a bad trailer. Melissa McCarthy, one of the lead actors in that, went, yes, it's a confusing trailer. It's not the best trailer in the world. Even she admitted that, and it comes down to, and what validates people getting pissed at that versus
Okay. Investment.
Okay.
People are invested in Ghostbusters. They see something that is ruining the Ghostbusters name. I'm not going to get into that topic today. But people see that and they go, this is not what I want. Dislike it. Done.
Because Ghostbusters is a pop culture icon.
It's a pop culture icon. Yeah.
Fair enough, but you get my point. There's even there are certain we're getting people with situations where people are getting pissed at people or situations on the internet is becoming more and more frequent, even as just the weeks progress. We talked about it earlier. In the past 6 months, even 3 months, we've had Fine Brothers, Matthew Santoro. We've had the internet get furious over.
Remember back in the days when Rebecca Black and all the hate?
Yeah, but
They were the calm days.
But
they were the calm days of the internet.
But that was exactly it. It was we've gone from one issue. We've gone from one topic.
And one person.
We had the same thing was with Justin Bieber. It was one topic that everyone just kept banging on for months versus individual things that are banging on shorter times but keep going. Let's be honest here. If let's say hypothetically, I don't know whether this is true or not. Let's say hypothetically, the new Ghostbusters movie came out and it was beyond brilliant. Would people go, okay, I was wrong, or would there still be people on the keyboard going, oh god, this is the worst thing in the world?
It's about first impressions. At this stage, it's about first impressions.
Yep.
And that trailer did not make a good first impression
That is
to
true.
a lot of people.
Yeah. And also, yes, people are still going to be raging about that movie, no matter how good it is.
It could literally give you money. It could literally have money flying out of the screen.
Look,
it could be using actual ghosts.
It could give you actual money, and people will still go, this thing was terrible. Because that's how the internet works.
Look at the way Hollywood's been doing trailers. We know that before the movie is going to come out, there's going to be another 4 more trailers. So those 4 trailers need to sell the movie, or else that movie is going to sink really quickly.
Well, you say that, but there's even now, Captain America: Civil War is probably the biggest success. Well, one of the biggest successes this year. There was barely any advertisement that I saw. Okay, so are we allowed to say what city we're in? Well, okay, we're in Melbourne currently.
Yeah, the Batcave's in Melbourne.
I saw virtually no advertisement for it in the city.
That's because Civil War had its marketing done with previous movies.
I actually saw a rather big advertisement for Civil War.
In a very popular central place in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Oh, that.
Yes.
Okay. Well, okay. Well, we know where it is. It was at Melbourne Central because it was at. Well, it's a location. It doesn't geographically locate us because they were advertised. Because I saw a video for that. Actually did see a video of that painting, and it was saying it was at Melbourne Central.
Yeah.
Like I actually did hear.
There probably was an event there or something. Yeah.
Well, there was a painting for it.
Yeah.
There was at the very least.
Yeah, they've been doing that for several films.
But
like
they've been
Star Wars and Batman vs Superman.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's been stuff like that. But even so, like, it just at the end of the day, like there were bigger. There's there's been bigger city promotions. Like I know GTA 5. Like when it was being released, it was like plastering trams.
Apparently in China when they showed Civil War, they had cinemas where half the room was Team Iron Man, half the room was Team Captain America. Like their chairs would have different emblems.
Wow.
That's in America, I believe.
Was it America or China?
America. I think it's America. We didn't get it here.
Are we
Either
more
way,
likely to
that
believe?
is amazing.
Are we more likely to believe China versus America just because if you try that in America, it would
turn into a civil war.
But it would turn into a civil war. But you could realistically only do that for maybe the premiere. You could only do that for a specialized event. Like was this happening on a regular or was this for like a?
I don't know. It's the internet. You see pictures everywhere.
Probably just like
Promotional.
premiere or like first week.
Yeah, because like I went to the Civil War premiere and they did not split a room. And like there were cosplays of everything from like Bucky to Iron Man. I think there might have even been a Thor.
See, that's the biggest thing we have in Australia, or especially in Melbourne. If there's a premiere, we will get cosplays, or we get like special events with VIP characters, but it's not something different.
But how much like I remember when Age of Ultron came out, they lit up Eureka Sky Tower with like holograms of the heroes, and I do know that like when Call of Duty Zombies came out, there was stuff going on in Fed Square. Like
even Hearthstone has had some decent advertising in Melbourne.
But that's my point.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. So what Hearthstone has been doing lately is for the newest expansion, called Whispers of the Old Gods. They went around different like major cities, and they painted sides of walls with some of the cards.
Huh.
So for Melbourne, it was a if I remember correctly, a tainted Worgen? No, Tauren.
Okay.
Huh. I haven't heard about the Hostel one. The Hostel community has been very
quiet.
Because it kind of
hasn't been for me.
it's like besides fire gatherings, it's not as big as it was when it came out.
Like that kind of it's more in the case of Hearthstone is very quiet in between expansions. As soon as a new expansion comes out, it depends on how big the expansion is, but it's pretty big normally.
Even then, I can remember even just like 6 months ago, there was there was a lot more Hearthstone news coming out, like just from gaming news.
Yeah, but even 6 months ago,
that's
it was
because
still.
It's now settled, and we now know what Hearthstone is doing. Nothing in terms of like competitive or anything like that has changed. What has changed in Hearthstone is new expansions and a standard format.
Yeah,
that's not really something you put out in the public knowledge. You keep that to the Hearthstone community and like the advertising.
And let it grow on its own.
Yeah. Also, the Whispers of the Old God advertising online was crazy. I would not go into any other site other than like YouTube if I would go into any site except YouTube, and I would see Whispers of the Old God advertisements.
Okay. It's just it's interesting because like that's what I mean is they just. For such a movie that has had so much hype and build put into it.
Civil War.
None of that was by the studio. Like barely any of it was done by the studio.
That was my point before. Other like the marketing they've done for other movies have built up to this. People know Iron Man. People know Captain America.
Well,
you don't need to force marketing for that.
It wasn't a massive build up. It was more of a character turning point. I haven't seen the film yet, but out of what I've heard, it's more of a character turning point rather than a massive build-up event.
Batman kills SpiderMan.
Yes. Batman is in Civil War.
Yes, definitely. But I think the biggest thing I can tell from like when they were advertising Civil War was the fact that Spider-Man showed up. Like that was the biggest. That was probably when the internet exploded the most over Civil War.
Yeah.
And
Civil War was going to be a big movie. Then it got to be a bigger movie because hey, let's introduce a character that we've done 2 reboots for, and reboot him again.
They hadn't actually done it. That was the guys from Sony.
Because here's the thing, Marvel doesn't own the movie rights to Spider-Man.
Or at least didn't.
No, they have. I think half of it now. Or they did a
No,
deal. They did a deal with.
Yeah, they did a deal with Sony, which was basically, Spider-Man could be part of the MCU.
Yeah.
That was I think because I don't know. I think I watched the first Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man 1. I don't think I've watched Spider-Man 2.
The Tobey Maguire one,
which I've heard is great. The Doctor Octopus one. I haven't seen that one. I heard that was really good. I haven't seen the Atrocious Spider-Man 3, and I haven't seen neither of the Amazing Spider-Man movies.
First Amazing Spider-Man movie was pretty decent.
But my point more being, I also know that though they might have been perfectly good Spider-Man, there was an issue in regards to how much Sony was willing to stick to the law, and people have more faith in Marvel to stick to
the law,
the tone of a character in terms of when they do it in a movie versus a big corporation that does everything like Sony does.
And a bit of spoilers
because they're part of Disney, which is the biggest corporation in the world. But
what I mean by that is Marvel, because when we think of those type of movies, we think of Marvel cinema specifically.
Yeah, we think of Marvel. We don't think of Disney.
Yeah. Your point was?
My point was bit spoilers for blank, but Spider-Man was done well.
Well, that's more of the you'd find that in reviews. I'm not gonna when you talk about hype and stuff like that, it's fine. I wouldn't talk about things that you wouldn't read in a non-spoilery review. People would say Spider-Man's great.
Can I just say I haven't seen a Spider-Man character done badly in a movie yet. Even in
Go back and watch the 1980s Spider-Man.
Okay.
Go back and watch it.
I'm not going to go that far.
Go back and watch most of the superhero movies before 2000.
Yeah. They were
No,
before I think the superhero boom would have started with the first Spider-Man, the Tobey Maguire one, then transitioned to X-Men and the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no. Actually, I can agree with that because I think
as bad as that movie was.
Not 2015. Not 2015.
No. I mean the original Fantastic Four. It was a bad
but
movie.
It was
a bad movie. You didn't like the original Fantastic Four.
It was.
Oh, I liked it. It's still a bad movie.
Well, okay. I think when you relate it to what we've got now, because when you look back at the early superhero movie franchise, there wasn't really much consistency in regards to, we're telling a bigger story. This is a superhero team. This is a story. That's it. It was going along the lines of what most movies do, which is a bunch of characters, a story. If the plot continues into sequels, that's fair enough.
Even the sequel was terrible.
But what I mean by that is there wasn't a bigger point to it.
No.
So when you look at
I wish Galactus was good.
But when you look at stuff like X-Men and Spider-Man and stuff like that, back before the MCU even started, they were superhero movies in their own rights.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't part of some bigger narrative. When the Marvel Cinematic Universe started, when the market got a lot more flooded with these movies, but since they were interconnecting, people didn't care. Because
people are caring now.
Well, people are caring now, but they're also. But even so,
But who do you think is actually caring? The general audience or the fanboys?
No, the fanboys are perfectly fine with seeing more superhero movies.
That's what they want. That's what we want.
Yeah. The public is kind of splitting off in points so that some people are kind of just getting tired of them.
I can understand that, but even so, most of the general public is kind of.
It depends on whether you're invested or not.
Yeah. But even so, even most of the general public understands that it's part of a bigger story, and thus that's the reason we can make more of these movies.
Yeah.
If these movies were cut off based on the hero, people would have been sick of them 3 years ago. They would have been sick of them after 5 years. So, but since Iron Man is tied to Captain America, which is tied to Thor, which is tied to Winter Soldier, which is tied to Ant-Man, which is tied to... Since there's so many threads being attached, and you know that those threads are moving forward, there are more threads to be uncovered, more people are fine with it versus if those threads weren't there.
I don't know, but you say 5 years ago, we're going to keep doing this, or the Hollywood's going to keep doing this for another, what are we now, 2016, 2018?
2020. It's going to be done by 20... I think...
Hopefully.
Personally...
Phase 3 is done by 2020.
Phase 3 is done by 2020. If they do go further than that, I will start being sick of it. Because it's...
People are sick of it now.
If they continue at this pace.
That's what I mean. But what I mean by that is essentially... Like, it's... Like I said, there are threads to a bigger story. Those threads have to end at some point. I think, like, from 2008 till about 2013... that was the intros. That was the story. That was the threads that introduced the whole story. We're currently in the phase where...
If you're invested, stick around. If you're not, then watch it for the fun of it.
That's exactly it. You stick around, you watch it for the fun of it. We're at the point where the story's pretty much... It's coming to the point. It's kind of building. There's more build. It's getting bigger. It's beginning. I think stuff like Avengers Infinity Wars and stuff on that back end, that would, for me, round out the whole thing.
But you got to remember that it's not just movies; they've branched off into television.
But even so, they keep those separate. Like, I think Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. can run for as long as it wants on its own steam,
which it has, and it's done right.
It's done well.
It's very loosely connected to the Avengers movies.
But the only thing they have to be careful of is like conflicting lore with the actual film. Well, and if they ever finish the films, the TV shows can continue and do whatever the fuck they want.
But they also covering things but even like. Marvel has done well in keeping their TVs and their movies loosely connected and very loose. Like, you can have as many seasons of Daredevil as you want without it having to impact the MCU. Jessica Jones is great in its own right without connecting to Daredevil.
So all those Netflix shows are great on their own.
But like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. does it too. Like, you know, like did it have huge cinematic introductions? Yes, like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. would not have existed without stuff happening prior.
That's true. Daredevil exists because it's standalone. It's still connected somehow.
But that's what I mean is it can like they've done enough to make it standalone while simultaneously living on its own. And honestly, I could almost see like these TV shows being completely separate. Like, okay, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. aside, being completely separate from the MCU.
Daredevil and Jessica Jones can be their own show if they weren't connected to the MCU. They were good enough that any sort of references to it would be like null.
Yeah. And going back to the main point of if the MCU, like from a movie perspective, the MCU should wrap itself up by the end of Infinity Wars, because if it goes beyond that, it'll felt like it'll have soul.
You're still saying that based just on the MCU. Remember, we still have the DCU now.
But the DCU isn't doing as well. Like, think about it this way: Batman vs Superman, for me, did badly because it tried to be an Avengers without doing what the MCU did in introducing.
And people speculated that before the movie was even out.
But do you know what I mean? Like, there were a bunch of different characters that didn't have a great setup that they're going to try and handle now. Like, there's going to be a Wonder Woman movie, there's going to be an Aquaman movie, there's going to be a
Batman movie, there's going to be a Man of Steel 2 movie.
But my point more being, they could have done, like, if they'd done those prior and then done Batman vs Superman, it could have been a great movie.
It could have, but it does come down to an executive level. Does DC want to do the same thing as Marvel?
It clearly does. Yeah. It clearly does, but...
Are they going to be getting good at it?
But the issue was that they've started late. And like in the race against Marvel, they've started late, and they tried to catch up.
Yeah, they're trying to use some... They're trying to use a golden mushroom.
Well, the way DCU does it is... They don't want to do the Marvel formula, but you didn't like Batman v Superman. A lot of people liked it because you know nothing about the Batman lore prior to the other movies.
Well, I did appreciate that they also I did appreciate that they didn't spend much time on the origin story. I knew because like most people know what Batman's origin story is.
Most people know Batman's story. Most people know Superman's story.
Yeah,
right.
Define most people.
Well, let me put it this way.
As in, can you walk into the street, ask a random person, how did Batman become Batman?
Well, like me put it this way.
But that does not cover enough. I've watched Batman vs Superman, and half the time I did not know what was going on.
No, but what I mean by that is,
as in the origin story of these two characters.
No, you don't
not
even,
what happened
you don't have to know
just
their
the origin
origin.
story.
You don't have to know their origin.
You may be overestimating when you say most people know.
But what I mean by that is, Batman's parents got killed and thus he became Batman.
Yeah, but that's
basically
what I mean.
it. But that's what I mean. Like they didn't. But that's for more or less. That's what you need.
That's all you need to know.
A rich kid's parents got killed and thus he became a superhero.
It's also safer because we've just come out of the Nolan movies. If this was made another 3 years later, and people haven't seen any of the Batman movies, they'll go, "Who's this Batman guy?"
But
you have to go back and watch the Nolan movies, or you have to go back and watch the Clooney movies, or
no. Like I said, I've clearly got a very, very limited amount of knowledge on Spider-Man. I still know Spider-Man's origin story. He got bit by a radioactive spider, and that gave him powers.
Yeah.
There are certain things in pop culture that transcend the knowledge of their source material. I knew the big twist in Star Wars Empire Strikes Back, and I only watched the original trilogy 6 months ago. I knew that before I even got into it. So there are certain things, there's certain pop culture knowledge that transcends the source material, transcends having to watch the source material.
Well, even then, it's in some cases an assumption now. Hollywood assumes that if you're going to watch these movies, you know something about it.
Because it's not.
Because we've done it enough
stretch.
times.
Because it's not a fast. Yeah, exactly. It's not a fast stretch.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is, you're right. People liked Batman vs Superman, and all love to him. It's just for me personally, if as someone who I can appreciate not trying to do the MCU formula, but if you're not trying to do the MCU formula, don't try to combat the MCU.
Yeah. Either you need a new formula, which is make sure that it actually works, or you don't try that thing.
That's exactly it. You don't, because think about it this way: DC is trying to combat the MCU. Don't try and be the MCU. That's exactly it.
That's what DC and Marvel have been doing from the beginning, or not the beginning, but
as comic books, they've been doing it since the beginning.
They've moved on. They've gone, hey, let's bring it to the next platform.
But you get what I mean. You can't. I can't walk onto a running track, do one lap, and expect to beat Usain Bolt.
No.
Even if I'm not trying to be Usain Bolt, I still need to get a lot of work done in the first place to make sure that I'm good at what I'm doing.
But you're trying, and that's what DCU is trying to do.
But there's a difference between starting and trying versus starting doing maybe a little bit of work into it, and then expecting to be diving into a big thing. Because that's what Batman vs Superman was. It was DC's Avengers, where everyone came together to one point. Difference was, it hadn't set anything up. It hadn't set much up prior.
The only thing prior to it was Man of Steel.
That's my point. You had
Man of Steel and the TV shows.
But the TV shows,
they didn't really lead into it.
But that's my point. Is there was no lead in. There was nothing to really set you up for what was going on. And that's what they're trying to do now. The movies like the Wonder movies, the Flash, Aquaman, they feel like Damage Control.
So Suicide Squad apparently.
Oh, that's it. I am excited for Suicide Squad. That still doesn't mean. Suicide Squad is a movie I'm excited for because like I said, it feels like a movie that's setting things up. It still feels the difference between what Batman vs Superman did and what Suicide Squad is doing is Batman vs Superman is going, oh, we've got a bunch of these guys that are going to be here forever. They're going to be here. We're going to make a huge thing out of these guys that we are just introducing now all together at once as a huge cluster. Suicide Squad seems to be going, there are these villains, they are doing something. It could have been its own movie and I wouldn't have cared. And it looks like it didn't have to be tied to the DCU to be a good movie. Does that make it?
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. But that's what Warner Bros. Is doing to Suicide Squad. They're going to make sure that Suicide Squad is as good as it should be.
I really hope that movie is good.
To counter.
That is.
to counter the damage that was done at BVS.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that point. I'm just saying the DCU has a lot to learn about making a cinematic universe.
Yeah.
And
They have a great animated universe.
no, they've got a great animated. They've done well
Multiple
before.
animated
Hell,
universes.
I'm excited.
And
as
they're
hell
great.
for the advertisement of The Killing Joke. which
Oh,
is-
the Killing Joke. Return of Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill
But-
together.
Yeah, but my point more. Oh yeah, because that looks great. Don't get me wrong. I like Marvel. I love the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I still have some huge respect for DC, and Suicide Squad kind of highlights where I respect the most. They're villains. They have better. Marvel does heroes better. DC does villains better. Because I like my villains to be. Marvel does characters that are more human. Like they are humans with powers, where DC does powers with humans. Powers that happen to be linked to things.
But their villains are very rarely actually powered.
But what I mean by that is they are evil before they are human.
I've heard something similar.
They are evil before they are human versus being human before they are evil.
I've heard something similar about the actual heroes themselves. DC has more reactive heroes, where Marvel has proactive heroes. Hence, there's in Civil War the Superhero Legislation Act.
Yeah. Let me say, let me put it this way. Would you give as much of a damn about Clark Kent as you would about Superman? Or would you just more primarily care about Superman?
That is a very interesting question I need to think about.
For me, Superman is Superman. Clark Kent is Superman without the glass. Superman trying to hide.
Let me give you the same question, but replace Superman with Batman. Who do you care more about, Batman or Bruce Wayne?
Batman.
Because
Batman.
people are debatable. Like depending on who you talk about, they are the same person.
Well,
That's my point. They are the same
Batman
person.
is, as a character, DC's best character.
But what I mean by that is, that's my point. They are the same person. You cannot separate the two. You can't separate the two. And that's fine for a villain where you don't need to separate the two. You just want to be able to focus on this guy. Whereas Marvel can split the two, and that's fine. That's great for your heroes because you can empathize with them when they're fighting, but also when they're just talking with family.
Like you can separate almost. You can separate Tony Stark from Iron Man even through. Okay, that's a
Can you really?
That's a bad example.
Okay, you can separate.
You can't do it with Captain America either.
You
can separate Bruce Banner from the whole. That's also
They're
stupidly
two,
easy.
but
I need to understand.
well,
See,
let me put it this way.
you can't do this.
You separate Thor in
X-Men.
Asgard and Thor on Earth.
You can
Okay.
you can separate. Okay, you can separate Magneto from his human side. He has a human side that you empathize with.
Yeah, but Magneto's human side isn't as present.
But
It doesn't matter which one is more present. It's more of a
But-
question of can you separate.
well, let me put it this way: can you separate the hero in a fight? Do you care as much about the hero when he's talking to his loved ones as when he does when he's fighting? That's probably a better way of putting this. Do you care about him when he's using his powers as much as when he isn't?
Okay, good example in the Marvel Universe. Spider-Man. Do you care about Peter Parker or the Spider-Man?
Peter Parker is amazing.
I actually care about Peter Parker.
Because he has a very...
I mean, despite the movies, him having
But-
the most monotone talking speech when he's at a costume ever, but
If you're going to go with that, I care as much about Peter Parker as I do when he's being Peter Parker as I do when he is being Spider-Man. I would think about it. Well, if we compare it to DC as well, going back to that point, do you care about Batman when he's Bruce Wayne as much as when Batman's being Batman? I think I prefer Batman to be more to be just Batman. Because that's when he's interesting versus when. Versus when you go to Marvel, when you can be either one.
in fact, he's still like Batman when he's Bruce Banner.
Bruce Banner.
Bruce Banner.
Bang.
But that's
because when you see him as Bruce, you see him always doing his detective work while trying to act in public, rather than you're seeing him as he would in public.
Yeah, and that double-edged sword, that two-sided thing for heroes is great. For villains, it can be interesting because you want to see them being evil, and them being evil makes them a whole lot more interesting because they seem like pure chaos.
It depends on the villain, but yes, for the most, as a general rule, yes.
Let me put it this way: who would you say is a better villain, the Joker or Magneto?
Joker.
Exactly, and because the Joker is chaos. Joker feels like chaos incarnate. There isn't some other side to him that you will straight up empathize with.
No.
And there is a pattern of that among DC, where you're saying that generally there are times where there is a side to them where there's a human side that you care about, like Bizarro is a good example, but simultaneously, a lot more of the time you see villains which are evil and tactical. Like Lex Luthor is probably a good point on that. Where
you're saying that in DC the heroes are a lot more, I can't say predictable, but are more one-dimensional. They're villains because they're villains. But you've also got examples of another main example that you're missing out is Catwoman.
Okay. But would you argue Catwoman? But there are also but you could also argue there are characters that play the field on both sides anyway. Like, do you get what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, but like even then,
hell, like Deadpool was a villain before he became what we all love nowadays.
Yeah, so it's a lot. There's still a similar case in. It's more present in the comics than the movies, but a lot of the villains do become. Well, not a lot of them. Some of them do become heroes at a time. What they're doing in the DC comic book universe now is they're making Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor is a good guy.
Okay, yeah, but when it came to Lex Luthor was always like how they try to make Lex Luthor, especially these days, is he's the business people person against Superman for the most part.
But
he is the voice for the people, even if that voice is an evil.
I'm also talking from a perspective of not of what they're doing from comic book to comic book, but more from what they're doing from a general perspective. Like I personally, have I read comics from both Marvel and DC? Yes, but I also know simultaneously, like when you talk to someone about a certain character, you're not talking to them about certain volumes, certain editions, certain issues, certain plot lines. You're talking about them from what you'd read from the first paragraph of a Wikipedia article.
Yeah. Because if I go to Jerry right now, Jerry, do you know anything about Golden Age Catwoman?
I have no idea.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because most people's assumptions of Catwoman is from the Christopher Nolan series or the Halle
I don't even know what you mean by Catwoman.
Well, fair enough. But even so, like that's my point. But that's my point. It's more.
What's her superpower?
This guy lives in a man cave.
Have one.
She's a cat that turns into a lady.
She has one in the movie.
She's a cat burglar.
But that's not a good example.
She's essentially a cat burglar. But that's my point is because when you know something, you go from a certain level. You go from not knowing something to have a valid to having a basic knowledge to then going in depth. Most people don't go in depth until they have a passion for it, so they stick to that basic knowledge.
Yeah.
So as a result, that's what you see more of. So when you compare certain cinematic universes, certain heroes, you're talking more from a perspective of what are they realistically in the public eye.
Yeah.
Can I just say they've pretty much perfected Batman at this point?
Yeah.
Have you seen Batman v Superman?
Yes, I saw it with Chris.
So, what is your perspective of the new Batman?
It's a good Batman. It's just that it was.
Did you really care that Batman was killing people? Like,
I did not
think
really
about
care.
it.
I thought about it. I thought about it a lot. I was just like, I like this version as its own version, but I also like it as a Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I also
they've pretty much perfected Batman. It's hard to make a bad Batman these days.
But I also think that you can, if you think about it from the context of what the movie was, you can kind of understand it. If they continued along this trend into the next time Batman's in a movie, I would then have an issue with it. But I can understand it from the point perspective of Batman was desperate.
Yeah,
No, it's different for this Batman. We will cover this in different podcasts, but we've got a Bruce Wayne that's been Batman for a long time. He's seen some shit.
Yeah.
He's up to the point where
I think
I don't care anymore.
Yeah, this
he does in a way, but
like okay. So out of the comic depictions of Batman I've seen is that early on he hurts a lot of people. Then he sort of transitions into being sort of more of a goody guy, as he becomes more and more Batman. And it's normally something happens, and then he becomes really screwed up.
One
and then
bad
eventually
day.
transitions
That's
back.
all it takes.
Yeah, one bad day, and then he becomes like a bit more of a murderer kind of guy.
But that's my point.
You're just quoting the Killing Joke now, aren't you?
Oh yeah, I just did.
But yeah, one bad day is pretty much what happens to Batman to make him lose a bit of his.
And that's why Batman has the Robins to keep him in check.
Yeah.
But
the
enough.
problem is, in context of that movie, he's lost one.
Well,
that's currently a bit of a rumor, but of that one costume that's in that glass case, that's what's rumored.
And based on what the type of thing the Joker was for Jared Leto, I can kind of believe that.
But yeah, basically he goes from someone who just is a vigilante and doesn't know what he's doing, then he becomes more of a I want to save people rather than just beat the crap out of bad guys. And then a bad day happens, he becomes like he originally was again, only worse. And then normally he transitions back into his same self again.
But in this case with BVS, he's crossed, in most people's eyes, he's crossed that line of let's not kill people, but let's make them hurt. Let's hurt them really badly.
That's and honestly,
but he was also outright shooting people.
Yeah,
but that's my point. Is if
this is a Batman with guns, mate.
Yeah,
but I can almost appreciate it if he does go back to that phase after the ending of that movie.
Well, Batman originally had guns.
I wanted to see it, because Batman originally did have a gun.
Bob Kane's Batman had guns until the public thought this guy's a bit too violent, so let's take away his guns.
Yeah, he has levels of violence that go up and down. It depends on who's writing it and what the context is.
But that's
and it normally happens after one bad day. So.
But that's my point. Is just essentially that I agree with that. If they can get Batman to a point where he's not completely for want of a better word, batshit crazy.
That's a nice laugh. But that makes good, interesting storytelling.
No, I'm not arguing that. I'm not saying there's a difference between being damaged and being crazy, and that's what I mean.
But there's also there's two main Batmans that we've seen, and that's the Dark Batman. And this is just in general Dark Batman, and then there's the more comedic side, which is like 1980 or like
Adam West. Yeah,
Adam West.
It's like old original TV show kind of Batman.
But Adam West Batman served the purpose based on what comic books were in that time period.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The original comic was dark. For like early comics, the original Batman comics were dark.
Yeah.
Then the TV show happened, and they made it more lighthearted than that.
But even so, I think comic books back in those days were very. There was there complexity to them? Yes, but there wasn't. I feel like the more we go into what we currently stand on.
No, there's more complexity in comic books now than there were before.
That's what I mean. As you move further, as the current version of pop culture has grown, we've gotten deeper and darker and complex.
Well, because it's less focused on kids and more focused on
adults.
But that's what I mean. But I'm also talking from a even just a general pop culture perspective. What are the odds that shows like Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad would have survived in the 90s? Or what do you think they would have been taken down on the spot?
They would have been taken down on the spot. For nudity.
I think in the right context, they would have stuck around.
They would nowhere near be popular. The context would have not been there in that time.
They would have nowhere near being popular.
We're developing that. Okay, correction. Game of Thrones was written in the 90s, but I don't think it would have become televised in the 90s.
No. Game of Thrones wouldn't be televised. Breaking Bad, maybe.
But that's what I mean. Is there isn't an absolute definite where shows like that can quite easily exist nowadays. Well,
no. Yeah. Well, guys, it's been great having you guys. We'll hopefully do more of these soon.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
You can find us on Facebook. I don't just type in the BJCKDs Podcast.
I'll leave the link somewhere in the description below.
You can look us up on our YouTube channel, which is just the BJCKDs. BJCKD little s.
Guys, it's been great having you guys here.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you very much.
And
also, you guys that listen to this can see Panda and Jerry on our podcast.
Panda and Jason.
Jason.
Yeah.
I'm bad at it. I'm terrible at names.
I'm even worse, but
Jason.
Well, guys, we'll leave the links to all those videos and contents in the description below, and we'll see you guys in the next podcast.
goodbye.